Good evening and welcome to the Board of Commissioners Budget Workshop Meeting number 3. Today is Wednesday, May the 28th, 2025. It is 4 p.m. City Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Brooks.
Here.
Vice Mayor Kerr.
Here.
Commissioner Tagliarini. Commissioner McGeehan.
Here.
Commissioner Gavalli.
Here.
Let the record show that Commissioner Tagliarini is not present during roll call.
There is no public in attendance for public comment, so we will move right into discussion items. Fiscal year 2026 Budget Workshop 3 deliverable.
Thank you, Mayor. So purpose of this workshop number 3, our last 2 have been focused more on just some more historical results, evaluating what our reserves may and could be as of the beginning of this next fiscal year to kind of prep you for what's to come, as well as also providing you with some detail of our initial inputs on the multi-year capital improvement plan. So we focused on those first 2 workshops, hitting on those items in March and April. I gave you in April a little overview on 2025 personnel information based on our current roster year-to-date plus vacant positions that we had budgeted in FY25. I'm repeating that information in here for comparative purposes, but really the core purpose of workshop today is to provide you information on the personnel of the city of Madeira Beach. So all our people, the salaries, costs, the head count of FTEs by department, and then all the related benefits and the cost of those benefits for each of the employees within the city. As we open, there's been one change to a department through my interactions with Jenny Silver, your community development director. She noted some 2 positions that were in there that we've subsequently eliminated, but that didn't get reflected in your packet. It will for next month's workshop. When we get to that page, I'll show you what those changes are. Otherwise, what you see here are those requests for positions for next year. And not a whole lot of changes from this year to next year. I think the 2 big ones are in fire EMS and in building services. And again, I mentioned building services. We are cutting back a couple of positions. And then fire will be the opening of the new fire station. So anticipation of employing firefighter and EMS personnel for that opening. So let's go through it and we'll just hit it kind of section by section, address any questions you have along the way. We've got department head representatives here to discuss if you have any questions on any particular positions. Good plan? Otherwise, this should be a pretty quick one. And then the next month's, possibly by next month, we'll have a complete depiction of the budget. We already have capital. We're going through personnel now. So then really all what's left is operating expenses and estimates of revenue. So we'll hit that for the June workshop, putting all that together. And then July, August will just be some cleanup and kind of really putting together the entire budget book. Then you're done with me. How nice. You can always find me. That's right. I'm not going anywhere. I'm sitting here. All right. So just on the agenda, we'll have the personnel listing, cost by department for FY25. I'm going to repeat this information I've already presented to you in the previous workshop, as I mentioned. Then let's look at what it's projected to look like in 26 on the personnel costs and the FTEs. Then our benefits for 2026, and I'll give a listing of each of those benefits, what they are, how to calculate them, and then what the cost impact is on each department. And then the last piece will just be a proposed mid-year budget amendment. I know we're a little past mid-year, but wanted to get this in, and then potentially for the next regular meeting, we can pass that via resolution, but wanted to use this time to propose. A lot of it's storm-related items. We'll just go through what that proposed mid-year budget amendment is. And if you recall, throughout the year, departments can perform what's called budget transfers. This is within their department. They have X dollars, $950,000 to spend in their department between personnel, operating, and capital. You approve that in the adoption of the FY 2025 budget. But then in some cases, they're overspending on office supplies, but maybe underspending on maintenance, so they can move money between line items within their department. But if they ever need to increase their budget for their department, according to our code of ordinances, needs to be recognized in the form of an amendment that needs commission approval that's allowable through a resolution. So that's what's going to be coming to you in the next regular meeting for approval in the form of a resolution, but wanted to get that out to you in this workshop so you can review it and get comfortable with it in advance of that resolution. So just looking at number 1 first, the personnel listing and cost by department. So first page here is just our FTE count for 2025. This is based on actual positions, and some are active vacant positions that we're trying to fill, but that do remain vacant. But this is what the current roster looks like, detailed FTEs. And again, I've already presented this information to you all, and that's where we're at here in 2025. And then on just scrolling down, next is our projected salaries, taxes, and benefits. So just looking at what those pay rates are, times hours, there's your salaries and wages, and then all the different benefits, both Social Security, Medicare, and then our different health insurance, medical, dental, long-term disability, life insurance, workers' comp, and then our retirement for the 401A, the ICMA plan, and FRS. So what all those costs look like on a department-by-department basis for the current fiscal year, 2025, projecting through the end of the year. So we're at about $7.7 million looking like of actual costs.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So in our last meeting, we talked about all of these, and Robin and I talked about it this week, that I think it's difficult for the commission to understand where all these people fit in. Could we get a list that breaks out who works in the city manager's department? Not persons, but for example, I know that in the Archibald Fund, at least one, maybe two of those people that are in the Archibald Fund actually work in the rec department. So I'd like to see how many people work in the rec department, how many are part-time, how many are full-time, how many people work in public works, are they full-time or part-time, how many people work in the permit and planning department, because they get all divided up, and you have like the public works director is listed under stormwater at a third, right? You know what I'm saying? So that we can understand each department has this many employees, so it takes, 8 people to run recreation and 4 people to run public works, or those are not factual numbers, but to give a better perspective. That's my opinion. Maybe if some other commissioners.
No, to speak to that, I'd like a better understanding of the building department, but this is not your bailiwick. Basically, it would be more for Jenny or Robin or someone to be able to define. Robin can't be here at this meeting, but he understands he's going to be here at the next one. And as much for moving forward into the reconstruction of our city, to see where we might be able to outsource or need more people. But it all goes into the budget, because whether we're outsourcing or need more people for the new build that's coming up. I mean, I feel like it's a snowball, and we're just starting at the top of this mountain to gain momentum on elevating homes and rebuilding homes and inspecting homes, and as they're going through the construction process. And how's that all going to impact the whole entire budget? But to what the mayor's requesting, it sure would be nice to have a better understanding of how administration works. So I would support that. But right now, I mean, my urgency is more on the building, and we have that in the next meeting, and we'll probably go through that, so I don't know that I'm really asking you for an answer on it per se, or Jenny, but before the end of the night, whether it's this meeting or the next, I'd like to have a better understanding of where we are, what our demands are, and, you know, what do we have now? You know, historically, have we always had 8.75 in building? Or, you know, are we going to need 15 for the next 3 years? I don't know. I just want to, are we going to outsource some of that? So I don't want to get off track with budget, but I would like a better understanding of where they fit in, review versus inspection, versus, you know, that sort of thing, administrative.
We'll go through that more in the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Now, for the next meeting, I know that we have the payroll study that's coming to us, and Robin's not here to speak to it. I had asked him about that this week, because talking about a budgeted payroll currently seems like we're putting the cart before the horse when we have a whole study that we've been waiting on for almost a year to see where we need to adjust payroll. And that's going to, it could dramatically change some of our budgetary dollars if we have people who are underpaid, which, or, right?
Agreed.
So that, right,
Where is
so,
it?
right.
It
I
should've
mean,
been
we've
here by
been
now.
waiting almost a year for that study. It's kind of crazy, but that's not your fault, but, so I think it,
Andrew has broad shoulders. Come
yeah,
on.
I know. I believe we are supposed to get that study. They are supposed to be here in June, at one of the, I would imagine, the workshop they will be at. But we'll have the budget workshop prior to their presentation. So then come the next workshop, that's all going to adjust again then, presumably.
So speaking strictly from a budgetary standpoint,
Yes.
yes, we have some initial results on the pay study. The intention is that will be fully implemented by October 1st of the new fiscal year, which will include right-sizing certain pay rates of various employees depending on their level, right, and where they come out on the pay in the pay study. We're already presenting you with personnel budget results right now with numbers. So what I can also do in a future workshop, when those pay rates are more accurately determined, I can tell you what that the impact is of fully implementing the pay study, and here's the changes, and here's what that total cost is to the city, right? Is it a couple $100,000? Is it a lot more than that? So I will be very forthcoming with that information once we go through that, and once we implement it, right? So that's coming. I've already had some initial discussions with the city manager on that and what changes, pay rate changes we'll be enacting. That's not reflected here.
Okay.
But rest assured, yes, that is the full intention, is to be live post-pay study with the new rates by that 10/1 date. And you'll know, okay, yeah, here's the impact of the pay study on what the rates were currently and what we initially budgeted, which is great. That's why we have these dollars in here now, so you can understand what that delta is in relation to the pay study go
So
forward.
you're saying the preview of the pay study is not reflected in the proposed budget for 2026?
Currently, with the data you have here in this workshop, the pay rates that we used for all of our current and then desired future vacant positions are based on their current rates of pay. And we know those pay rates are going to change by several things. One is going to be a COLA increase, one will be a merit increase, and one will be the effects of a pay study, which may or may not affect your pay rate depending on where you came out in relation to that study. But if it did, then that would increase your pay rate as well. So I will give you what the impact is of the movement of pay rates from the study.
Thank you.
And then, Mayor, to address your request, and I can put this in the next workshop, perhaps you're looking for more of a, like a roster, like give me, like for recreation, just tell me the position, title, the name of the employee, or if it's vacant, and then the percentage that they're allocated to that department. Would that be helpful for a more
That
detailed
would be
roster?
helpful. I don't necessarily need the name of the employee, but what I think would be helpful would be to understand each department and how many employees they have and what is their title. That would be, I don't know that, to me, the name doesn't matter of who the employee is. If the commission wants that, that would be, but I do think that it gives you some perspective of understanding, like I said, Archibald has positions that really belong to other departments. We don't have 4 employees that work over at Archibald. They just get paid out of that fund. So what are they doing and where are they doing it at? Does that make sense?
I think we need to keep the names out of it.
Yeah, I don't want, their names don't matter, just the understanding the departments.
But if you have employee 10, whatever, and they're allocated 30% here and 30% there and 40% over here, okay, we have so many employees that are just kind of,
But
Faulty.
the reason I'm asking for that is because that's not actually how it is. So they're divided up into 30, 30, 30, but like Megan is divided up into 30, 30, 30, but she's 100% our Public Works
Works.
Director.
but she's funded by different.
It's funded differently. So I don't, maybe this is a better way to say it. I don't really care where the funds are coming from to pay the people. I want to know how many people we have working in each department in the city. And Archibald Fund is not a department. Recreation is a department, fire is a department, Public Works is a department, planning and zoning and permitting is a department.
The only question I would have is how would that make us make different decisions? So I have to figure that out in my head. Yeah, I don't want to create work just to create work, but I want to.
I don't think it would be difficult for that to be put
Yeah.
pen to paper for you to, for us to be
Yeah.
able to see. I mean, like, I'm using recreation as an example, but I know how many people are in recreation. And I know what each role title is. And I know that because I asked Jay one day and he told me, and I wrote down all the different positions that work for recreation and which ones are part-time, which ones are full-time. To me, what it allows us to do is look at and understand the workload of what they have and whether or not they do need one of those part-time people to be full-time, or whether or not they, right? That's, I think it gives a better perspective of understanding what each department has going on.
That's all I ask is,
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what
Yeah.
the end game.
Yep. I think you and I will both get what we want.
Okay, thank you. AJ.
In the budget packet that we have online, there's page 13, 14, and 15. I'm not sure if you guys have that pulled up. It's similar to what you're asking for, but it is still broken up in Archibald and different.
Right.
Yeah, if you keep going. Right there.
Okay, yeah, you have a lot of them.
It's broken down like that, but like Archibald's the first one, which you gave example of, and I understand.
Yep.
I know what you're talking about. We went through that exercise years ago in
Yeah.
the budget committee when we discussed it, but something similar to this is what we're.
So Robin and I talked about it today, but it is something, and we looked at this. So it is something, or yesterday, I'm sorry, not today. It is something similar to that, Jay, but much more refined. Yeah.
Right, I mean, the first question, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but we do need to keep Ed here for 2 hours, so. Recreation Leader 3, a full-time position under Archibald. I can't imagine that there's anyone in rec department that needs to dedicate a full-time position at Archibald, or correct me.
To give you an idea kind of where that funding came from, I don't remember what year it was, but the idea was that there was a resolution that any additional funding inside of the Archibald Fund through the parking funds could be dedicated for parks and recreation activities.
Yep.
So in an effort to not pull money from the general fund, positions, my department and other department were put there as they were allowed to, and it lessened the impact on the general fund. So it was creative budgeting, essentially, creative accounting.
Right.
That was the intent. And there's been
Well,
discussion.
I'm sure of that. I'm just,
Yeah, just, yeah.
you know, again, I'm trying to get to the end game, what decisions we're going to try to make. And, you know, if we're doing this for other reasons, other budgeting reasons, other accounting reasons that, so we can comply with all the rules, the accounting rules. So be it. I mean, I imagine our parking fund's going to get pretty nice until we build a parking structure. Are we going to start allocating funds from that division, or have we already to the rec or to other departments because we have the resources there, you know?
Yeah,
That's-
I only know that one. The other stuff.
You know, I follow the logic.
I think that with the list, though, you could take the list and then look and you can see that, how that all works.
So what I could do is an enhancement to that funded positions by department. I could have the title. I could let you know, is it funded or vacant? I could let you know the number of hours we have allocated that. Is it 2080? Is it 1040? And then I can let you know what the allocation percentage is for that position. So just a little more expanded knowledge. And yeah, if you have a recommendation, say, well, I want Recreation Leader 3 out of Archibald and into Recreation, we can certainly do that. I think we need the position. I think that's just a
Yeah,
discussion of
I don't
where
think
it
anyone's
belongs.
questioning whether we need the employee time,
Yeah.
just how it's allocated, I guess. I don't know.
But yeah, if that would be helpful, because then you'll see the Public Works Director in three different, you'll see the allocation percentage, 30, 30, 30. So we can have a little more visibility around that for each of these positions. And I can put that as together for the next workshop deliverable.
Or at least just a note, you know, this is, you know, why we're doing that. Why, as Jay was saying, you know, years ago, that the recreation leader was put in there because of other reasons. I don't know, because we had Archibald funds available where we didn't really want to pull it out of the general fund to pay that position. I don't know. I can't speak to it.
That could be that. That one preceded me. I think it's been that way for many years, and
Sure.
it's just been kind of status quo.
Okay.
So getting back to now, just scrolling up a bit on your budgeted personnel costs and FTEs for FY26, we've got, first is just a pie chart of the personnel costs, you know, by department. It's just a pie chart showing, you know, fire, EMS, you know, where the largest costs are coming from in that pie chart. And then we show, and the next one, just a comparison, FY24 actual, FY25 adopted budget, 26 proposed budget. And just so you can see the cost comparison among the, for each department
Can I stop you again? I'm sorry.
across fiscal years. Sure.
On your pie chart, you have I just corrected myself. I was looking at the 3.4 million as a total being down at the bottom, but it's not. That is the fire and EMS, because I was coming back to the 2025 at 7.7 million, which
Correct.
is roughly what, 40% of our budget?
I believe, so,
45%
yeah,
of our budget?
I believe so.
But, and that, again, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but as you do your explaining, that section is the big increase this year, and that has to do with the new fire station. And part of that is funded by other cities or other, we also have a revenue to put against the expense for at least a portion of it.
We will. The fire chief can elaborate.
So the increase from FY '25 to '26 is roughly $592,000. We just got our EMS budget approved for the Reddington station at $749,000. So it looks like it jumped up a lot, but we're actually getting that money back and then a little bit more.
Awesome. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
And for those new positions, we didn't budget them for the entire fiscal year. I believe it was just for a part of the fiscal year in 2026. I believe based on our analysis of when we would actually be operational with the new fire station. I don't think there's the anticipation, Fire Chief can elaborate, but that it wouldn't be live and up and running with full-time employees by 10/1, but sometime in 2026.
So I have a question about parking. So why is parking jumping so much from 25 to 26? We didn't add any staff. Is that because of benefits?
That could be because of benefits. Yes, I can do more digging and get back with you specifically on the cost increases relating to parking.
I mean, and so even in recreation, you're going from 686 to 900,000. There's the jumps that are so large. I'd be curious as to know why.
Yeah.
If we've added staff or we're going to add staff next year, then that would make sense to me. But if we're not adding any staff and we haven't given any raises yet,
Yep. So it could be,
and I think if that would be across the board, all of them, anything that's jumping at a big number, building services is going from 700,000 to 1.2 million. That's that's a double. So what are we planning or proposing that's going to happen in 2026 that's going to take our proposed budget so high, given we haven't even done raises yet? Right? There's a lot of big jumps in there that I'm sure there's a reason for it.
we have benefits, we have the COLA increase, merit increase. We'll talk about that when we get to
Okay.
the benefits section. So I
So the
imagine
merit
it's
increase is already in the proposed budget?
in this, for this,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So then after the costing information, yeah, it's just a comparison of funded positions over multiple fiscal years. So that 93.27 is our number of FTEs, which agrees to the total, the grand total that's in the following funded positions by department, a listing of all our FTEs. So that's where the 93.27 positions, that's just basically the detailed breakout of that by department. So this just gives you a multi-year comparison by department of those positions, and then the detail of each position and number of FTEs by position, specifically for fiscal year 2026.
Yeah, basically, I think we're going to need a reminder on this group health insurance. Is this a one-time hit? I know we were changing plans. We approved to change the plan, and that was a one-time hit. But looking at this bar graph here on page 17, the group health insurance, these are all the increases? Is this the bar graph showing?
No,
the
that's just
increases
that's
total?
just for fiscal year 26, just the total cost. So I didn't do a multi-year
Oh, okay.
comparison of
All right,
costs
I'm looking at it wrong. I'm
by
sorry.
benefit. It's just, okay, here's our total benefits that we're budgeting for fiscal year 26. What's the total cost per benefit? But before getting into that, I did want to take you to the funded positions by department. So looking specifically at building services, that's 11.75 FTEs. But for the next budget workshop, we'll be removing 2 FTEs. Right now, you see code compliance 2. We're going to remove 1 and just have 1 FTE position at code compliance 2. So that'll be down to 1. And then we'll be eliminating the permit clerk position. So then that'll be, instead of 11.75, that'll be 9.75. So there's one change to personnel that we know we're making. That'll be reflected in the next budgeting materials.
So I have a question for Jenny then. Why are we getting rid of two positions? Are they changing to a different name? Are they?
Yes, we made a lot of different changes when our old building official retired. So, I kind of took over the building fund at that point. And so we did some reconfiguration. We added 2 employees that were working from the rec department. We brought them under building, and those positions kind of took the position of the permit technician and the code compliance. So that's where you see that permit and code compliance specialist. That's kind of morphed into those positions. We do have that. We are asking to keep one of those code compliance positions open right now just to see how that part-time hybrid works out with code compliance, but we understand that we may need some extra help there. So we're kind of keeping that vacant at the time. We also made changes to a lot of position titles. We did have that permit technician position. That employee received a certification, so then we moved her title. So that's where you see that certified permit technician, as well as the building compliance supervisor. That position changed titles. So we had a lot of different internal changes in the flows and functions, and including 2 new employees.
So I have a quick question that probably I should wait till the next meeting, but I think I might forget to ask it, and I've been very curious. There was a time when in the building department, we had 2 code compliance persons
Yes.
who drove in the 2 cars twice a day. They drove the entire city.
Yes.
Are we still doing that? And the reason I ask is because I know we have a lot of issues, and I see the cars parked here a lot. So I'm curious, is that something we're transitioning on? Are we going to do that differently for the community?
Yes, we're looking at the best ways possible right now. We also have an inspector, so that kind of takes our building, building deputy building official. That's what it was. That's what the previous title was. We morphed that into an inspector. He's also helping. He's out doing inspections as well as helping with code compliance, so he's driving around. We also have those 2 positions that are kind of hybrid positions, and then we have, the operations coordinator now is the building compliance supervisor, who is seeing code compliance, who is also, right now we're in the training phase, so our 2 employees that are doing code and compliance are working together at this time, so that's why you don't see both of the Mustangs out.
It sounds like it's streamlined into a much better use of everyone's time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we understand that things will still need to change. We're open, we're flexible. That's why we're also asking for that code compliance position, one of them to stay open, just so we understand what the flow is, and then if we need it, we can hire somebody for that position.
And I appreciate that.
Yes.
Forward thinking.
If the budget's not there, how do you hire someone for it? The way I understand what Andrew just said, you're going from 11.75 to 9.75. You're getting rid of the permit clerk and one other line item, is that correct?
That permit clerk position changed to the certified permit technician, so that it's the same person.
So it's the same person, it was always 9.75. This is listing both.
Don't have the number from last budget, but that's the same,
Yeah.
same
You haven't
person.
eliminated any positions.
We
They
haven't.
just shifted around, maybe what their
Yes.
title and their duties
Yes,
are.
we
Yeah.
also shifted, so you'll see the building services, and then we have the community development. We all work together now under the community development department. Some of us are 50%, I'm 20% from the building fund, Marcy's 50%. Marcy used to be 25% I believe. My position used to be 10% from the building fund. So we're kind of changing those numbers.
Really?
So if you see a big shift, it's the same employees.
Okay, so we're not going to spend a lot of
Most
time
part.
on it then, but you're basically keeping this, you're not adding any additional positions in the budget right now between community development and building, or you are?
We just have that vacant code compliance. So we morphed those two code compliance positions that we did have when our old code compliance officer left into the permit and code compliance specialist. And then we're asking to keep,
Yeah.
to have one extra.
Previous to Jenny taking over and all of the departments coming under her umbrella, they worked very separately.
Yes.
They did not communicate together well. And I mean, this is just my observation. Now they work as a team and they're able to cross work with each other. It's day and night different than it was a year ago today, I can tell you.
So we made a lot
Yeah,
of
they
changes.
made a lot.
Take your
I made
win.
a lot of changes. So we're still trying to figure out what works, what doesn't, what do we need, whose day-to-day changes, what does that look like, how does it function as a department completely instead of having two separate.
Yeah.
And then also in the community development department, there is that planning technician position, so that will also need to be removed. So building services goes down to 9.75, community development goes down to 4.25. We made a lot of changes, so it was
Which one under community development is going? I'm sorry, Jenny.
the planning technician.
Okay, that's
So
what I
the
thought.
the
Thank you.
planning technician, removing that, we do have a vacancy as that planner 2/3. Depending on the skill level, that's where it'd be a planner 2 or a planner 3. So that's what that is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on any of the headcount from the funded positions by department that you want to cover before we delve into benefits?
No.
Okay, looking then at benefits. So I provided you the names of all the benefits that are offered to city employees. Two of those benefits are direct pay increases. So rather than adjusting the actual pay rate, we left the pay rate as it is currently, and that'll be the proposed future pay rate 10/1/25, beginning of fiscal year 26, knowing we will make changes to some of those figures based on the results of the pay study and fully implementing that. In addition to that, in fiscal year 25, we had a cost of living increase applicable to all active employees. That was last year, and then for fiscal year 25 budgeting purposes for 26, we're looking at doing a COLA merit combination. So COLA 3% is what is initially proposed, and then a merit increase could range from 1% to 4%, depending on results of performance evaluation. For this budget, we had merit at 3% and said, well, what if we gave everybody a 3% merit increase and everybody a 3% COLA increase? Later on in this presentation, I'll show you the disparity in cost if we say increase the merit increase from 3% to 4% or decreased it from 3% to 1% for all employees, hypothetically, just so you can see the cost sensitivity to moving the lever on those percentages. And then the other benefits, again, a lot of workers' comp, because based on the type of, the class of employee depends on your workers' comp class and resulting workers' comp rate. Fortunately, most employees fit in the workers' comp clerical, which is only 0.11%, but some others are higher depending based on the level, the type of work that's being done. And then we have our medical, dental, and vision insurance. This is conservatively estimated. We don't have information back from our provider yet. I believe last year we proposed 18%. I think that would have been the absolute highest if you were on the more expensive PPO plan, employee plus spouse plus family. So that was the kind of the max, the most we felt that benefit could have been for an employee. So 18,000 is maybe, and maybe that could have been a little higher, but in the law of averages, we figured 18,000 was a good number to budget annually per employee.
So
Go ahead.
can I ask a question about that? So I'd like for us to have a discussion on when you have an employee who does not take medical, dental, or vision because they have a spouse who has those benefits and they don't need them, what do we do for them? I know that I have had a lot of conversation with other, not necessarily cities, but companies, and they give a stipend.
Stipend, yep.
Yep, either monthly, quarterly, yearly, what have you, in place of that. So I don't know where or when is the time. I mean, budget season, budget time is the time to have the discussion. I'd be interested to know, like currently, how many employees do we have that do not take the benefit because they have it somewhere else? Is it 1? Is it 10? Is it, 20? Because I think that I think I've been an advocate for, I don't think, I know I've been an advocate for employees to get benefits, that benefits are one of the things that keep people working in the city or in any place. So if you have someone who does not get a benefit because, like I said, they have it somewhere else, then what can we do to give them? I'm not recommending that we would give them $18,000, but something, maybe a FSA card or, a health card with preloaded, or I don't know if it would be a bonus, I don't know, but I'd like to have that conversation because I think that we do have employees who do not cost the city this money, and we should be able to provide them with something because we budget for everyone. It's my opinion.
I can, discuss that with the city manager. I know it's been evaluated in the past, offering a stipend. I'm not sure where those discussions have moved, and I'm not sure exactly the rate of adoption of employees and who takes insurance from the city and who doesn't. But we can certainly look at that, and I'll have a discussion with the city manager on potentially offering something. From
So
a
I think-
budgetary standpoint, we're budgeting all employees at 18,000,
Right.
so we'll have the budget to do it.
Right.
It's just a matter of enacting it.
I think that it would be of interest for the commission to know how many employees currently we have not. Actually, it probably doesn't even matter whether it's 1 or 20. I think having something recommended for what to do for those individuals, because if we hired somebody tomorrow, or, that would be part of their benefit package. If you can provide proof of coverage, which I would be a fan of, you have to prove you have coverage somewhere else, not elect to just take the money and not have the coverage. But if you have proof of coverage somewhere else, this is what you're going to get if you don't take the city's insurance. This would be your whatever. So however you and the city manager would recommend, some recommendations I think would be beneficial.
Perfect. Okay, we'll get back with you on that.
Thank you.
And then for the Florida retirement system, now we have drop, regular class, special risk. Now that we used to just have special risk just for our public safety employees and fire EMS. We more recently opened that up to all employees. The majority are on the FRS plan. Some are remaining on ICMA and the 401A plan. And so that's a 9% contribution. For the city manager, it's 12%. And right now, we've budgeted 33% special risk, 14% regular class. We'll know those new rates. They come out July 1, 2025. So those rates could be, including the drop, those rates could be subject to an adjustment once we see what the new rate structure looks like for the 2025-2026 fiscal year. So I'll know more on that in early July. And then scrolling down, this just is the total cost per benefit. What's costing the city the most? Is it a pay increase? Is it workers' comp? Is it the ICMA plan, FRS, group health? So you can just see what's the most expensive benefit, for employees. And right now that's your group health insurance. And then this just shows what the cost by department is for all of the different plans individually. So we have FRS, we've got very few drop employees. I don't know if that's maybe one or a couple. And then a lot more FRS regular class, and then special risk is all in fire EMS. And that's your total cost of FRS plan is 1.18, almost 1.2 million. And then the ICMA plan, again, that plan participation has shrunk since offering the Florida retirement system, but we still have employees that are participating in it. And so these are the figures for that. City manager plan is just offered to one individual, so that's obviously in the city manager department. And then the cost for the other employees in various departments, and that all totals about $120,000. And then here's health insurance, a nice rounded $18,000 a year, fixed amount for each employee, both vacant and filled. So probably a little over budgeted there because not every employee is going to take the highest health insurance. So there is it's a more conservative estimate. But really until open enrollment, we don't know what those numbers are truly going to be. So we just budget for the 18,000, and that's 1.8 million in total there, broken up by department. And then here's your pay increase. Ignore the title there. That should say the total for. Whoops, sorry. Health insurance looks like that was doubled. So that I pulled from the wrong table. So apologies on that. On the pay increase, that table is in error. But wanted to show you really on the bottom the merit increase of a 1%, 2%, or 4%. So really what that cost would be if the merit increase. So right now the pay increase is in total is looking about a little over 200,000 increase in cost for the 3% COLA, the 3% merit. And so then what the merit increase would be if it was 4% instead of 3% would be 140,000. If we dropped it down to 2% instead of 3%, it would be at 70,000. And then if it was 1%, it would be down to 35,000. So that just gives you a little insight as to the cost sensitivity on the on the merit side.
Last year, we did a cost of living across the board. Was it 6% or 7%?
We did, I believe, 6%.
6%.
Yeah, across the board.
But that included the merit.
It did. So I am not a fan of giving 6% this year. I think my personal opinion is that we should give a 3% cost of living, and then if our budget would allow it, up to a 4% increase for merit. Because I said this in a meeting, why should everybody get a trophy? Why should you get 6% raise when the person next to you is putting in way more effort at their job? I think a merit-based increase is just that. It is a raise based on your job performance. Otherwise, where's the incentive to perform? if every year everybody gets a raise and the raise is just based off of, we're going to give everybody a raise, then there's no incentive for me to work harder this year than I did last year or to do more than the person in the chair next to me. I'm just going to do what's minimal because I'm going to get my raise anyhow.
Well, based on that, though, I would suggest that we do it by department, that's yours, whether, pick your percentage, and that the department heads would determine.
I
But it
100% agree.
couldn't be more than what was budgeted for that department.
Well, I think, so if you were budgeting, you would budget, if I'm guessing, wouldn't you budget if you had a 3% cost of living and a 4% merit, then you would budget the full 7%.
Well, it's up to, it'd be
Up to, right, it'd be
right.
budgeted the full amount.
So-
But then if the department head is doing all of their reviews and they've got 5 employees and one is exceptional, and they give that by whatever metrics is put in place by the city manager, they get the full 7%, but the person, maybe the other person or one of the other people doesn't get a merit increase. They just get their cost of living. They just get their 3%.
I don't know, I think we need to workshop that.
Listen, I brought it up in a budget. I think
Yeah.
that giving everybody a trophy is not the right thing to do. I think that people should be rewarded for the work they do. And this is a way to reward individuals for the work that they do and the effort they put into the city. And some people are worth more than others.
Well, it all makes sense, but then, I just, as always, it's like devil's advocate. That could create dissension in the ranks where, if everybody's getting that same 3% increase, 3 plus 3 or 3 plus 2 or whatever it happens to be, then it is what it is. You don't have one employee disgruntled because my supervisor didn't think so much of me. Or
I would
didn't-
think that
or-
it would be, I would think that it would be somewhat hand in hand. I don't know how they do employee
I don't know,
evaluation.
that's why I say we have to.
Yeah,
I don't
so I think it would be great to have this as a topic for us to really
Yeah.
get down and gritty and discuss it.
Yeah.
I am not a fan of everybody last year I was, because I thought that, and I'm not saying that I don't think everybody in the city wouldn't end up getting the full
Oh,
percentage, but
we have yet to hear what the report's going to give us.
Right.
We have,
Right.
we need to have that. I'm just saying, during the budget talks,
I think
I
it
think we
should be a
just need to
topic, it should be on
table it
our,
and put it into a
I think it
workshop.
should be a workshop to
Yep.
discuss it for sure.
So regarding budget, currently, there's performance evaluations being conducted for all employees across all departments. The budget right now, we said budgeted 3% COLA, 3% merit. And I apologize for the misinformation on the table. The COLA, total impact of the COLA increase is $125,000. The total impact of the merit increase is $125,000. So $250,000 total for all departments if every employee got a 3% COLA and every employee got a 3% merit. My intention will be, before the adoption of the budget, before our meetings in September to approve the budget and the millage, we'll know what those merit increases are by employee, and I can adjust those merit percentage amounts by employees, so we'll know exactly what the increase will be, so that it'll be more accurate for budget purposes. So think that 125,000 number, if all employees instead got a 4% instead of 3%, it moves up from 125,000 to 140,000. If everyone gets a 2% increase instead of 3, it's 70,000, and if everyone gets a 1%, it's 35,000. So that's the variation we'd be looking at from a 1 to a 4. But that's the plan, at least. The evaluation process is already ongoing, as I mentioned. If we can get things finalized and know what those final percentages will be for merit, then that'll be accurately depicted in their pay rates for next year. So just gave you the 3% now just for illustrative purposes for all employees, just so you can see what it is. Then the last table is just the workers' comp. That's about 180,000, just so you know what the impact is on those employees and their respective workers' comp rates. And then the next slide goes into our proposed budget amendment that we'll put forth in in June for the regular meeting. And before we start on that, any final questions, thoughts, reflections on the budget information presented to you all for personnel? I've got 3 major takeaways, well, now potentially 4. Have in the next workshop deliverable on personnel, expand that employee roster to include number of hours and percentage allocation by position, so you know a little bit more on each position, rather than lumping them all and and if they're vacant or funded currently. And I'll have that information for the next workshop. Then the evaluation of the 2025 budget amount to 2026 budget amount. Let's use parking management as an illustration, seeing what that total cost difference was. Is that just really the benefits that's comprising that? I'll do a little research and report back to you all on that. And then the health insurance stipend, I'll discuss that with the city manager, come back with you all with some ideas around that. And then if there's any discussion coming that you want to have, whether it's in a workshop or on what those, on the merit increase, whether in general or anything in specific that you want to cover on merit.
I just have one more question. It has to do with the health insurance, the FRS versus the ICMA plan. So last year, I guess it was last year, we purchased the option for the employees to go back over to the FRS. Is that correct? But you didn't have to. Is that a one-off, or can eventually we see the ICMA plan actually go away?
So those were one-time costs for those employees that were converting, buy back their years of service for retroactive application. Those costs won't recur. This is just the true cost of the FRS contributions that we need to make to each employee.
Right. No, I get that, but I'm just saying, can the employees that decided not to change, not to go back to the FRS plan, do they still have that option to do that in the future? Do you know?
So your question is, do those employees have the option, or was that a one-time election? I think that was a one-time election for existing employees.
Just curious. More, or we'll continue to have 2 plans.
We'll continue to have 2 plans.
New
And
employees offered the ICMA, or just the
I think
FRS?
new employees upon hire are offered the option. And I think once you make that election, then it's fixed for the term of your employment.
Gotcha.
But that's my gut telling me that. That's not an absolute
Doesn't
factual
really
statement
matter a
necessarily.
whole lot for budget reasons. It was more of a curiosity thing for the employees.
But yeah, I think once you make the election, then you're set
Okay.
between ICMA and FRS. Oh, I could be wrong, so please correct me.
Sorry, I was just listening in the other room. So new employees only get the FRS.
Okay.
And existing employees had the one-time option to choose FRS or Mission Square.
Perfect.
Okay, so it's half right, at least on that. Okay, so then the last piece is just our proposed budget amendments, and so I'll just kind of run through them. Just, it's in the comment. This is what initially was input in the system for what we're proposing the budget amendment to be, the GL account, what we're increasing. So we created an account 001-1400 550001, disaster-related expenses, just kind of a catch-all for expenses that were not necessarily department-specific, that we're catching them in Department 1400, which is non-departmental. So we've been accumulating a significant amount of Hurricane Helene and Milton, mostly Helene costs. And that's also where we're pushing our debris removal. So that's the biggest culprit. So we have 15 million requested to increase that budget, offset by FEMA, ideally FEMA grant revenues to be reimbursed over time. And the next one,
Over time, didn't we already get some of that grant money?
we did. So that was just category A on the debris removal, but we'll have other costs as well. So that 15 million isn't just all the storm removal. Those are other costs incurred from other categories relating to the hurricane that we anticipate reimbursement. Then this next one is the fire station. So it's fully funded by Pinellas County, but we're, as managing the project, procuring the vendors, paying those vendors, and then submitting for reimbursement to the county. So we'll have the revenue from the local intergovernmental revenue coming from Pinellas County, but we need to budget for the expense. And then note that that's not a capital expense. We're putting that in other current charges since it's not going to be Madeira Beach's fire station. We're just managing the project, incurring the expense, but ultimately be Pinellas County's asset, if I'm not mistaken.
A little bit.
Correct me, please.
With the agreement we have with Pinellas County, we do not have to front any money. When I get an invoice, I send it to Pinellas County, they pay it, they have the 30 or 45 days through state statute, so we don't have to front any money.
Very good. Thank you.
So yes, while we're incurring the expense of 7.4 million, it's fully funded by Pinellas County. So there's no out of pocket to the city. Then the next is the compensation classification study from Gehring Group. So this was budgeted in a previous year, did not carry over from the 25 budget, the 24 budget, the 25 budget. So we're just adding in here for those costs incurred in fiscal year 25 for the pay study.
That was less than 50 though, wasn't it? I thought it was 38 or something, 35.
It was, I think that was the biggest item. I think there's some other small dollar items in there that increased it to 50. But the compensation classification study from the Gehring Group, I thought that might have been in the low 40s. And so that was the largest contributor to the requested budget increase in human resources.
But again, it's a budget. It's not a line item in your accounting. It's just putting the assets, approving the assets to be available to pay the bill.
Approving the funding to be available, right, to that specific account.
Right.
001, which is general fund.
Less than 50.
1030, which is human resources department. 53100 is professional services expenses.
Right. Just for giggles, what's that 2.87 million?
So that's just our fund balance net position. That's the carryover. So that's what we have available in fund balance. That's reserves that we have available. We have a lot more than 2.8 million in reserves available, but that's just what we budgeted initially, where expenses and other outflows exceeded revenues and other inflows. So we balanced the budget with existing reserves, which were more than enough. And so this just increases the reserve since we're increasing the budgetary expense to human resources. That doesn't mean we're incurring a $2.87 million loss necessarily, because actual results could be significantly less than budget. That was just that budgetary figure of reserves to balance the budget. Then the next one, This was just something that we budgeted at 1.58 million. The actual cost per contract was about 1.68 million. So we just needed to increase the budget for the law enforcement, the contract with Pinellas County. And that's so that department couldn't really absorb it because that's really the main cost for that department. So again, if we have to overspend in a department, we've got to take that to commission for approval, and that's the 90% of what that budget is in Department 4010 law enforcement. Then we just had some IT managed services that was budgeted at 15,000, but we've got the virtual chief information security officer position that's outsourced. That was for 60,000. That was not budgeted. So we want to increase that IT services budget by 60,000. That just got missed in the budgeting process for fiscal year 25.
Is that our contract, or is that in addition to our contract, our IT contract?
I believe that was just a part of the contract and just did not get budgeted for. And I can pull the contract and verify, but I believe that was a part of that, the contractual services with
Yeah, because I
Integris.
thought our contract was roughly that amount.
I can pull that. I think that contract is hitting some different accounts, some IT services, some other items, but my understanding was that budgeted service was unbudgeted, essentially.
Okay.
And I recall seeing that in the contract, and I think about it. It just didn't get budgeted.
So how did it not get budgeted? Because,
I think there was just oversight on missing that within, and our IT budget is pretty slim, so.
Megan knows.
So the state of Florida made us do some security changes. I don't exactly know those off the top of my head, but I believe that's what that is. But I could be wrong, so I'm going to write a note and get that to you guys.
Thank you.
thank you.
Sure, I'm glad you're following along.
And then the last couple are just specific fund department related that were impacted by the hurricane, that impacted their department and their departmental supplies and maintenance budgets, all related to the hurricane. And so that's just increasing in the sanitation fund and then the Archibald Park Fund, and then Johns Pass Village within the general fund. So we can get you some more information on the IT services, but that's ultimately what we'll put forth to you all for resolution for the June meeting. And that will conclude my presentation. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you. Any questions? No good? Any
Thank you,
questions?
Andrew.
Thank you very much. It is 5:08. We are adjourned.